Greetings, one and all, and welcome back to the 1904 Club podcast. And in keeping with Hull City's season of injuries, we've got Kathryn, who was injured this morning. How are we?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, but I did. I was telling you earlier, I fell over on a run actually while I was back in Hull. So I think that's just anyone in the proximity of Hull at the minute is liable to get injured in some way or another.
If you've got any CCTV of Kathryn,
amazing,
like ring camera running past your house and falling over a bin bag, do send it in. We'd love to see it.
Were you going too fast, Kathryn? Was that what it was?
Yeah, that thanks, Prutts. That's what it definitely was. That
exactly.
Actually, I did go flying as well. But you know, like when you fall and you're sort of mid-fall and you're like, I can't stop myself. I've just got to accept my fate. And there was an old couple behind me that must have seen me go flying. And it was like they walked past me and I was just sat there sort of in my thoughts and thinking about what had just happened, looking at my injuries. And eventually the guy turned around and said, "Oh, you all right?" And I thought, well, it's a bit late for that, isn't it? You're all the way up there now. If I'm not all right, you are not helping me.
Where was it?
I was trying to work it out on the map earlier. North Holme Road in Hessel.
Yeah.
It was around there. So if there's any bin bags when people are going down there with bricks on them, there's a little bit sticking out the bin bag that tripped me up.
And it was bin bags on the street. I mean, has the wheelie bin craze not taken off? And
good solicitor might make something out of this. If anybody's watching the 1904 Club,
does Hudgel watch?
Oh dear. So yeah, if you've got any ring footage of Kathryn tripping over a brick and bin bag, we'd love to see it, because just for our own humour. And she's not the only one. Prutts is also damaged. They were the dulcet tones of Hollywood's latest star. Chip in with your injury.
Yeah, I mean, now that I've heard the full extent of Kathryn's, mine seems even more low-key than what it was. It was just a door onto toe scenario. My own door and my own toe with my own arm, which is mental. But and obviously quite a lot of very loud swear words. But no, I didn't realise that was the full extent of yours, Kathryn. I'm both intrigued, entertained, and obviously very empathetic.
And we've got Burnsy, who's been for a blood test.
Yeah, I'm all right though. I've got some, so that's the main thing, and it is flowing, so that's double bonus.
But Burns is just miffed that someone's tripped over his bag of bricks out the front of his house on North Holme Road. hasn't quite put the story together. Some idiot's been kicking bins of it on the road.
Shh. Don't give the game away. Should we talk football then?
Yeah. Well, what we need to say is, Rean Slater, now you're out for 6 weeks, mate. You're not on your own. You've got full sympathy from Kathryn, who's also out injured, and Prutts, who's now got one less toe than he started with.
Just got a hurty toe. That's all it
is. Yeah. Let's after that, welcome everybody. Let's talk football. It is the international break, the final one of the season, and thank everybody who is anybody that Hull City survived the banana skin on Saturday to beat Sheffield Wednesday by 3-1. Burnsy, we were both at the MKM Stadium. It didn't start particularly well, did it? They didn't deal well with Wednesday and fell behind. But credit to them, they responded, I think, officially within 94 seconds, although it felt a lot quicker than that in terms of actual play. Really well-constructed goal. And then they never really looked back after that, did they?
It was nervy. I think it was nervy going into the game. There was a lot of City fans that I talked to were very nervous about it. And when the first goal went in, and to be fair, Wednesday probably deserved it. I thought they started all right. I thought they played all right for a team that who hadn't won in 32 games and had got 1 point out the last 15 games. They actually came to play, so credit to them for that. But yeah, City did it in the end, and that was the important thing. But the big thing, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, is Slater's injury. It's come at a cost, so we'll talk about that. But I think I think it's a huge 3 points. Needed it after defeat previously. They needed to do it after that West Brom performance, so it keeps them very much in it. And 7 to go.
Kathryn, typical City. Were you confirmed? Were you concerned before the game, given that implosion at West Brom and just how bad they were, and the fact that, yes, all the stats, as we said last week, no wins in 32 games, 1 point out of 45. Wednesday already relegated and everything that's gone on there. Was there an element of nervousness for you about what that game could be, given the pressure on City to go out and win that game?
Yeah, I mean, I had a dream the night before that we lost, so I was clearly worried about it, and it was just that, like you called it, banana skin, and there was a little bit of nerves, I think, at the start of the game as well. And when that goal went in, and you're hearing the Sheffield Wednesday fans singing "You're being mauled by the Wednesday," it was sort of like, oh, please tell me we're going to shut them up soon. And I think if they hadn't have got that goal straight away like they did, it could have been a rougher afternoon. But I think the fact that they responded so quickly really did kind of help turn the tide a little bit. But I knew it was going to be a difficult game. I knew Sheffield Wednesday would want to get themselves up for it. Yorkshire derby, packed out away end. It was always going to be a trickier game than it looked on paper. But equally, there was always that kind of thinking that Sheffield Wednesday probably couldn't sustain the effort that they were putting in the first half for the whole game. And I think we saw in a second that they just sort of fell away a little bit. But yeah, it was just one of those that you just needed to get out of the way, get the 3 points and just get through it and move on to what feels like a much needed international break.
Prutts, Sergei Yakirovich has been at pains in the build-up. Was at pains in the build-up to the game to say, look, nobody really has battered Wednesday. Yes, they conceded 4 at Swansea, but the majority of those goals came quite late on when, as Kathryn said, they ran out of steam. They've given, even at home to Ipswich last week, it took until the last 15 minutes for Ipswich to score a couple of goals and win the game. So they've given all their problems. They've still got capable players. They've still got pride. As Kathryn says, it's Yorkshire derby. We saw that on Boxing Day, how difficult they made it. Nobody has wiped the floor with them. So you've still got to treat them with the respect that perhaps the league table doesn't suggest that some teams maybe would.
Well, yeah, and obviously, given where they are and the mammoth points deductions and the chronic mismanagement of the whole football club, that's where that kind of caveat is. I mean, the fact that they've not won for such a long period of time does suggest that there's an element of pride there, but they're still not able to beat teams. And see, as Sergei said, it was one that had to be won. I think Burnsy, your reaction as the equalising goal went in, which was few, I think really did sum it up, because the defending for the first goal was terrible. But that ability to almost give themselves a kick up the backside by letting a goal in meant that the rest of the game seemed relatively straightforward. City had some good chances, took some good goals. I mean, if Ollie scores that one before the actual first goal goes in, it's just like maybe it's a different game. Maybe Wednesday fall apart. You don't know. But yeah, it's. I mean, with my Sheffield Wednesday affiliations, I know how proud it is, and it's particularly how proud the fan base is. But on the pitch, off the pitch, they've been absolutely nowhere near it for such a long period of time that it had to be a Hull City win to make sure that they reacted from playing against another team that's been poor over the course of the season in West Brom. So yeah, it was a game to get through. I think by the end of it, I get the feeling that City fans were enjoying it, because it could have been quite easily 4-5, maybe even 6, couldn't it, towards the end? Yeah. But for a deflection, there wasn't necessarily a lot of Wednesday. I mean, Pando had a save down to his right-hand side, which I think you would have to class as relatively straightforward with a side-footed shot from the edge of the area. But it was a game to get back on the horse, absolutely. And given where they find themselves now from a points and games ratio, coming into this last little chunk of the season, it's where City would want to be. They do their job. They're in the playoffs, aren't they, basically? There's only really one, is it Ipswich, that only has a game in hand above them, who've got eyes on the top two. So if City do what City can do, and have done for 39 games so far, then it'll be a playoff campaign come the end of the season.
Kathryn, given what we've had 7 games in 21 days before the Sheffield Wednesday game, and then Sergei referenced it a couple of times, 26 games, I think, since the back end of November. So it's been on an injury hit squad. It's been a heavy schedule. Has the international break come at a good time? Do you think? Yes, they've gone into it on the win, on the back of a win, and there's momentum there with that win. But is it just a chance now for everybody to take stock? Kind of, you've got 7 games to go when you come back. But all the players have been given this week off, apart from obviously the international players who are away. But everybody else has been told, stay away from the training ground. I don't want to see you until next weekend.
Yeah, I think it's come at a good time in terms of the injuries that we have, and maybe some players that are close to being back that might be, ready to come back when the football starts again. And I think we just needed a little bit of a reset. We haven't been playing amazingly, I don't think, in the last kind of block of games, apart from ironically Millwall when I thought we were played really well and lost. And I felt like we just need a little bit of the players do need a break, and you've starting to tell that it is taking their toll physically a little bit, the amount of games in a short space of time. And I think sometimes mentally the players just need a bit of a reset as well, as well as physically. Like you are getting down to that point in the season where the pressure is, increasing, and they will feel that as well. And while they've not had loads of expectation on their shoulders, for a lot of the season, I think there is that expectation now, given they've been in the playoffs for so long, that they will end up there. So I think a mental reset as much as a physical one is coming at the right time.
Yeah,
that number of games, sorry to put in, 26 since the end of November, did he say?
Yeah.
And obviously you've got to chuck into that games in the FA Cup as well. I'm maybe catching you on the hop here, but is that fundamentally more than anyone else?
No, I don't, and that's. I don't think it is. That's a normal amount of games.
Yeah, without sounding too cynical, it's almost it's almost a redundant statement. It's like getting into November or October and going, bloody hell, we've got lots of games left. Well, there's 46 because that's the number of teams in the division. Well, I'm not trying to sound smart or condescending. I understand what it is with regards to workload on going off what the manager's saying, workload on the players, but anyone else think that like mentioning how many games there are is completely redundant when it comes to what we're doing? Because if there were no games, we wouldn't be sat here talking about it. And if you didn't play loads of games, you wouldn't get promoted. I'm not mansplaining football to anyone here. Am I being too cynical with this?
No. I think you're spot on. And when you think next season they're going to go to 8 in the playoffs, that'll create more games. Yet they'll still whinge. If you don't want more games, don't have 8 teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, and that by definition has been voted through by the clubs. So the EFL's not gone, right, this is going to happen. It's gone, what do you think? Shall we do it? And everyone's gone, yes. So I don't know. Kathryn, I'm intrigued to see your take on this, Kathryn, given the different kind of variations of football that you cover and speak to. Are we in a position now where hearing, and it's not about how much they get paid. I understand all that, the human element. I totally get, and I empathise with that to a certain degree. But it's just a statement of fact that is it really needed? I don't really know.
Yeah, I think managers mention it a lot, don't they? The amount of games they have to play in a short space of time, and maybe I guess Jukovic is thinking, oh well, loads of games, not as big of a squad as I would have had because I've had loads of injuries. I also think with Sergei, it's his first season in England, so maybe he's not used to the amount of games. I don't know how many games they play in the other leagues he's been in. But it made me laugh that he thought Charlie Hughes was a 2-game suspension because he said in Croatia, I think he said, it was 2 games for the same offence. So that's why we appealed it, because I thought it was a 2-game ban. But it was actually 1. If I'd realised it was 1, I wouldn't have appealed it. But I think maybe he's just not used to the relentlessness of the champ. Maybe I don't want to put it on him, but maybe that he's thinking God, what a lot of games, because in other leagues maybe they don't have as much. I think maybe the Championship, it's always spoken about. It's the same in League 1 and League 2. It's a bit more relentless than the top leagues, and obviously Sergei was in the top league in Croatia. I don't know how many games they play there, but maybe he's just getting used to it as well.
Yeah, they talk about the Saturday, Tuesday. I mean, again, it sounds like I'm being a bit of a smart ass, and I'm really trying not to be. It just comes naturally to me sounding this kind of offensive. But if you take away the midweek games, I mean, your season's going to be 11 months long, 11 and a half. I mean, you just physically can't get the games in if you don't squint them in midweek. So, like I said, I understand. And then, I mean, it's a good way of discussing it with out and about in public. So there's a general sense of a bit of PR with that, I think, with the fan base, etc. But if the squad's not big enough, it's the club's fault. You know what I mean? If you can't buy players, it's the club's fault. If you can't sign players, it's the club's fault. I know people point to the EFL and sanctions and punishment, if you like, in inverted commas. the laws and the rules are there for a reason. Yes, there's grey areas to some of it, and there's an interpretive side that people may see is being applied. That's rubbish. The rules are there, and if people don't stick within them, that's what happens. So yeah, it's, I don't know. Like I said, it's just a comment, and when you hear it from across the board with football of workload and volume, there's a certain element of me that it doesn't really strike a right chord. I don't think.
I think it's a fair point that you've raised. You know it when you go into the season as 46 games, and if you have runs in the cup, which historically over the last few years Hull City haven't, you're going to have extra games, and they obviously had the extra game because of the Blackburn game. Then there was the Watford game they turned up for that got called off, so that had to be then shoehorned into a midweek. Because of the Chelsea game, you then had, and the Ipswich game moved into a midweek. So I guess it's, from his point of view, it's probably that in the last couple of months they've had a couple of extra games thrown into midweeks. But you look at the Premier League, you're only playing 38 games. You look at the teams that aren't in Europe, they're basically playing once a week. And that's an easy schedule, once a week in the Premier League.
It's like applauding Man U for pulling their fingers out and doing well. Like they've been great now. Well, yeah, they've got multi-millionaires playing one game a week. And again, that sounds really super cynical from that point of view. But you kind of look at it and go, well, sorry, you should be doing really well because of what your workload is compared to other people. God, I sound old and bitter. Don't know that I don't play football anymore.
But I think ultimately it's come at a good time for City just to reset, and obviously, hopefully, it gives. You know, he said that he doesn't want to see anybody until next week or next weekend. So everybody's gone on. Carl Joseph's gone to Disneyland, for example, and to spend some time with his kids. His youngster.
That'll be relaxing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh,
but yeah, he's gone back to Croatia, Sergei, and basically keep away from the training ground, have some time away with your family, go and get some sun or whatever, and we'll reconvene. Interestingly, 2 years ago, they went to, obviously under Liam Rosenior, when City were just outside the playoffs, I think on 58 points at this stage 2 seasons ago. They were always chasing rather than being the chase. And they went to Antalya for a mid-season training camp, or a mid-March training camp, and they came back and really struggled, didn't they? And they obviously didn't ultimately get in the playoffs, and they lost at home to Stoke in the first game back. And I think there was a feeling amongst the players that trip abroad wasn't intense enough, that there wasn't enough training, that they were sort of lounging around. Go on, Prutts, what you go on.
I mean, you're either damned if you do or damned if you don't.
Yeah.
A bit of sun on your back in March. Sorry, can we do a 12-minute run? Can you make sure you pack the bleep test, please? There's absolutely no chance any of those players were, like, if they said out loud that was serious enough that they meant that at all. We just talked about a workload. So give us a few days with, and it's not that a footballer 25 years ago, they wouldn't have been sat there for 3, 4, 5 days out on the lash and all that type of stuff. They're just not built that way. I mean, some still are, but they're just not built that way. But anyone believe that here? No. We did do enough training in March.
It's mad, isn't it?
I mean, saying that, Sergei will probably be in charge of Chelsea in 2 years, then, if that's the way that normally works.
He's got to go to Strasbourg first.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. European tour.
Go on, Burnsy, what have you got?
Right, shall I read out some messages? We'll talk about Rean Slater in a minute because that colours the whole thing. Also, I want to talk about the international break with the game, the Oxford game being on Good Friday. For those that are away on international duty, there is, I don't want to fire Prutts up here. There is less recovery time because it's a Friday, not a Saturday.
Flog him to death! Come on, flog him!
So I think that's a concern for me in terms of how the squad might look for Oxford, but we shall wait and see. Just on the injury situation, Jamie Daphne sent us a list of the 17 first-team players that have been hit with a long-term injury this season, not in order. Slater, Drami, Balumi, Crooks, McBurney, JB, Giles, Ajayi, Jacob, Famewo, Lundstrom, Hirakawa, Gelhardt, Palmer, Destan, Brandon Williams never really played, did he? And Miller, have we ever seen this before? Well, it's a long injury list, but they're going to have to cope with it, Jamie. But thank you very much for that. And you mentioned Kyle Joseph taking his kids to Disneyland. Joseph Gilson says, I feel we're a much better team with Kyle Joseph in it. His pressing and tenacity add so much to the team. His goal was a corker. I thought he took his goal really well, played really well against Wednesday. There are plenty more messages coming into the 1904 club. I shall get through them as we go through them. What is the situation with Slater? Is that him done for the season, or might he be back for a playoff final?
They reckon 5 to 6 weeks. He's had a bit of an ankle issue for a while. It was exacerbated at the weekend when he I think he won the tackle but got trodden on after half an hour. He left the stadium on crutches, and scans have revealed some damage. So they're saying 6 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks. That takes him right up until the end of April, obviously. They've only got one game in May under the regular season, which is obviously, I think, the second at home to Norwich in the final game of the season. So whether he comes back sooner, we'll have to wait and see. If they do make it into the playoffs, then you'd fancy that the playoffs, we haven't got the dates confirmed yet, but they are usually the following weekend. The first leg is the following weekend to when the season finishes, with the second leg, 3 or 4 days later in the midweek. So hopefully he's back, but we'll have to wait and see. But obviously he's been really important, hasn't he, Kathryn? He's had a great Regan. By the gaffer's own admission, he started the season as 4th or 5th choice. He probably went into Saturday as the first choice. So that shows how well Regan's done, and to force his way into to be one of the first names on the team sheet.
Honestly, I wanted to cry when he went down on Saturday, because I was just like, I'm just sick of it. But like with most of the players, and granted we've had a lot of injuries this season, and there are some players where they've been injured and you think maybe there's not a like-for-like replacement. But I think with Slater, I can't think of how you replace him in that team, because I just don't think we've got a midfielder like him. The only other one is maybe you can't replace McBurney, but at least you can put other people in that position. But I think Slater's the one player in that team that we haven't got another one of in terms of a like-for-like. And when you saw him go down, you know he's that type of player where he's not going to go down unless it's quite bad. And you could see straight away he was sort of shaking his head and that he was going to have to go off. And he's been just so important in that midfield. And we've had a few discussions about the midfield this season in terms of who should play in there and what the best kind of midfield three is. And Slater's always been in the three. It's been a case of who plays alongside him. And he's going to be such a big miss in terms of his energy, his kind of box-to-box play, his linking of the play. Like, he does so many things in that midfield, and I'm just struggling to see how they find a way to, play without him, or who they bring in, because you're not going to get that like for like. So maybe they have to change their approach slightly in terms of what they do with the midfield. But he's going to be a big miss. And if they could get him back for the playoffs, if they make it, then that'd be great. But then you're also thinking he'll have been out for 5 to 6 weeks. So how fit will he be? So that was a real kind of, it was a big blow on Saturday, that one.
Prutts, he's been fantastic, hasn't he? He's played in every single game this season, and it shows, I guess, the character of the player to start the season knowing you've got a job on your hands here to get in the team, because your manager's openly said you're not first choice, and then very quickly becomes first choice. So it's testament to Regan and his professionalism and his durability as well, that he's been available in every game, and he's been a hugely pivotal figure.
Yeah, I mean, and it reflects on the approach that's not necessarily. I'd like to think broadly it's the kind of general way to go. It's not the case of, well, I'm not going to get a game, so get me out of here, or throwing toys out the pram, because given, obviously, by definition, the fact that you can only start 11 players, and if you're not in that 11, then your next port of call is to get into the squad, and then after that, it becomes even tougher. But I think he's done brilliantly well. He's been very well. He's been very consistent as and when he's had the opportunity. He's kind of gone about his work, from what I can gather, in a very quiet and efficient manner. Worked his socks off to get into a position where he's in front of the manager's face. And he's been at City for such a long time that maybe a player such as that gets a little bit taken for granted, because what he can do, and maybe people focus on what he can't do. But there's a hell of a lot of good things about the way that he plays football and how he fits into that side and what he does for the club. So No, I think he's been a wonderful servant once again. It's a shame with the injury, and fingers crossed it's not too long. Have they quantified these injuries? I mean, is there anything in it that is? Are there any underlying factors? Is there a lot of muscular stuff? Is it more impact stuff? Is it anything to do with the training? Because I think not that you're kind of casting aspersions on the way that the medical departments run or how the training's run, because I'm obviously knowing everyone there really, really well. But sometimes when you can work out what these injuries are, sometimes there's a thread, or sometimes it's just a complete sense of misfortune across the board.
I think the feeling is misfortune. They've complained about the pitches, the training pitches, and the pitch on Saturday. I mean, aesthetically, it looked a lot better than it has done, but it was very bobbly and what have you. So I think there's still a concern about the pitch. But I think a lot of it is from when you talk to people and you talk and what have you, they say just bad luck. At the ACLs they did last season were done. You know, Bellumi was done away at Oxford, Mataza was done away at Cardiff. Yes, Miller was done at home, but 2 out of the 3 were done away from home. You know, some of the injuries they had. I think there's, like you say, a lot of the fans look at the facade of the training ground and go, the training ground's a sack of what. It's not fit for purpose. But they've invested a lot behind the scenes in the stuff that the fans don't see. But you look across the Championship, there's so many injuries across the board, isn't there? And in the Premier League as well. And we're dealing with Premier League players. You look at Spurs. Spurs have got arguably certainly the best stadium in Europe now. They've got one of the best training grounds in Europe at Spurs Lodge. They'll have the best people, the best equipment money can buy. But yet they've got one of the worst injury records in the country over the last couple of 3 years. So there's just injuries across the Championship. Everybody's got injuries. We played Portsmouth a couple of weeks ago, and I think they'd got 12 players out.
Ridiculous.
It was 14 the game. I think it was 14 a couple of games before. They had a couple back for the City game, so it went down to 12. But it's just there's got to be something deeper. Whether it comes back to the intensity of the games, the amount of games. Although that's not changed necessarily over the years, you know, the amount of cup games hasn't changed in the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, has it? But I don't know. There's obviously something across the board. Whether it's the type of boots they're wearing, I just don't know. Burnsy.
No, I was going to come back to Prutts' point about sort of number of games and everything like that. You know what you're getting, and maybe they are playing too many games, but nobody's going to change it, are they? Because that would take money away from clubs. Yeah. So it's not going to change. Need somebody to do an in-depth study. I think back to Millwall when City played Millwall down at. No, we're not doing it. Well,
no, Kathryn's doing it. That was my point, Burns. I said we need a huge broadsheet with a proper journos clout behind it to be able to sort this out. There you go.
Go on, Kathryn.
There you go, Kathryn. There's a piece on the analysis of injuries. If there's a student watching this, there's bound to be students watching this. You've sod all else to do. Sorry, used to be a student myself a long time ago. But you know, do as a piece on injuries across the Championship. I think back to Millwall when City played down there earlier in the season. They had 9 midfielders out of their squad for that particular game. So it is happening everywhere, and whether you can pin it down to something, I don't know. But it's worth having a look at. And I've forgotten what I was going to say next. I was going to lead us to something else.
Just on the injuries.
We'll come back to that. I'll go to some of the messages coming in to the 19. You said, Baz, that you had some good news on the injury front before we sort of started recording this. Slater was the bad news, but there was some good news on the injury front.
Yeah, Kathryn can walk now. She's all right. She can go and pick up the bin bag. Ryan Giles and Darko Jaby and Matty Jacob are making really good progress. So we'll know more, obviously, towards the back end of next week in the build-up when the players are back on Monday, next Monday, after their week off. So we'll know more. But there's a hope that those 3 are very close, particularly Giles, I think, which is obviously massively important. Giles, the kind of the feeding to Burnley's dried up a little bit since Giles has been struggling with his injury. We've not seen those cutting edge assists that we saw before he got injured away at Middlesbrough, have we? So him coming back is a good thing. Obviously, they've struggled at left back. over the last few weeks since Akin Famewo got injured. Matty Jacobs has been out with an MCL knee. He's getting close, and I think there was a feeling that Darko JB was going to be out for the season, really, with his groin problem. But he's back on the grass and, could even be returned to full training next week. So obviously he's been out for a while. I think since New Year's Day against Stoke when he limped off quite early on as well. So that's good. They need to get some minutes into Toby Collier because the manager said to me the other day that he's not. I said, is Toby ready to start? And he said, not yet. So they need to get him in a position because obviously with Regan being out and Elliot Matarzo still, although it's a long way away from being able to start a first team game, he's had his setback. Yu Hirakawa, he's not having surgery. There's a chance that he could return if there's a playoff campaign forthcoming. So that, but every time we kind of get into a stage of the injury situation starting to improve. You're starting to see a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and then bang, you lost at West Brom. You lost Coyle. You lost obviously Hughes to suspension. Then you lose the game after that. You lose Slater. They're basically losing pretty much a player every game, and they might get one back, but then they lose somebody else. So they just need a bit of a breather. So hopefully this international break gives them. And of course, there's 8 players away on international duty that you wanted to talk about, Burnsy. Maybe that's jogged your memory. Hopefully, all of those 8 players return without any problems and can play in the running.
Just on the subject of the left back, I thought McNair was excellent against Sheffield Wednesday.
Wonderful cross as well for the second goal.
Yeah, really I think the bonus is his set piece delivery is better than perhaps we've seen this season from other members of the squad. So that was good. Plus, I'm presuming for Oxford they'll have the option of Coyle coming back in and going to left back if necessary, and Drame continuing at right back. Centre half, they've got Hughes coming in, and then you come to who might play alongside him, because McNair's on international duty, Egan's on international duty, Ajay's on international duty, and I think also you've got Kumas and Amir. Only one of them will go to the game next week, if I've read this right, because they're playing each other, Bosnia and Wales. So one of them will be available for the game. If Amir plays for Bosnia, and I know he's not been a regular starter, then can he play Tuesday and be ready for Friday? Not sure personally, because he'd probably be one of the candidates for coming into the midfield with Crooks and Lundstrom and Amir. I think that would probably be the sensible midfield for that. So you've got all that going on. Miller, I don't think certainly won't start at Oxford, I wouldn't have thought, because he's in the Canada squad and they play Wednesday. So to get back from Canada to be fit and ready for Oxford on Friday, I think is a big ask. Prutts may have a different ex-pro view on that.
There is an element of that sense of trekking around. I do certainly get that, and travel involved. I'm sure the travel side of it's not exactly crammed into a budget airline flight anyway, is it? But I do understand that time differences and again, given some of the magnitude of the games that we're talking about in this international break, there's that element as well, isn't there? Dialing up your emotions and being able to perform in those games. So I do, but I mean, again, it's. I know that we're talking about volume of games and international players, but it's inherently a positive thing, isn't it? City playing more games means they're doing something right in different competitions, and having international players away I think it's a real privilege, I think, for Hull City to call a lot of their players international. So, yeah, but then the thing that it boils down to is slightly different to that position that you mentioned a couple of seasons ago, Baz, where that the onus was on City to chase people down to make sure that they got there at the end. The onus is now to maintain broadly what they've done for 39 games. We discussed it before, where whether City get the respect that they deserve, or the kudos for doing what they've done. I think it's inherently so far so good, isn't it? And it's just and this last bit, I'm making it sound straightforward. It's not. It's the toughest part. It's to maintain what they've done with those miles in the legs over the course of a season, to then go again if they do end up in the playoffs. So yeah, you're hoping that it comes back in and everyone's jetting back at the same time to be refreshed, revitalized, ready to go, and looking forward to it. Sergei said the other week, didn't he, about I asked him the question about why not Hull City, and he said the same thing, because so much hard work's gone into it, so much emotion's gone into it so far, that to kind of stagger towards the finish line and not get into the playoffs would be a real shame. And then you've got to look at it professionally and as an organisation, because of what they've done so far. Yes, there are teams hot on the heels, Southampton in cracking form. We don't quite know what Wrexham are going to do. That it's about their test of mettle. And I think they've shown that they can stand up to the task and they can live up to expectations. So 7 more games of that, and it's happy days.
The other one, Burnsy, to add, is Ivo Panda away with Croatia. They've got 2 games. They're playing both of them in Orlando, in Florida. So I think they're expecting Miller back from Toronto and Panda back from Orlando, both on the Thursday. Shemi Ajayi, they're playing, interestingly, they're playing Iran and Jordan. Those games were supposed to be played in Jordan, but obviously with what's going on out in the Middle East, that's not happening now. They're in Antalya. So both games are being played in Antalya. So that should be, we know what the flight to Turkey, it's only 4 hours or so, isn't it? So Ajayi, assuming he comes back without any problems. But that is something to keep an eye on. That 3 of their 4 centre-halves, 3 of their 4 frontline centre-halves are out on international duty. Cathal McCarthy, he's away with the Republic under-21s as well. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But as Prutts says, it's a great thing that City have got so many players away on international duty. Kathryn, Prutts, I'll come to you as well on this. Good Friday, Southampton don't play because of the FA Cup. They don't play until they go to Wrexham on the Tuesday after Easter Monday. Coventry played Derby, and obviously City are at Oxford. Wrexham are away at West Brom. In terms of Southampton, Kathryn, they're the form team in the league, 8 wins in 10. They've not lost since City beat them at St Mary's early in the new year. They're in incredible form. But the FA Cup, they've got Arsenal in the FA Cup. Does that become a distraction, given that they're going to have an extra game to fit in at some point as well? Or is it great for them to have those games and those occasions, a bit like we said with City and Chelsea, last month?
I guess it might depend how the game with Arsenal goes. I mean, if they give them a better game than we gave Chelsea, then maybe it turns into a positive. But I think it's good from a City point of view that it delays them having to play, because I always think you'd rather be the team with the points on the board than having 100%. To chase the points and having the games in hand and then trying to say, oh, well, if we win those games in hand, then we'll have these points, because you still have to win the games in hand. I think when I was looking at the run-ins of the teams around us, I think City have got some difficult games, and sometimes when you play in teams that you think will have nothing to play for, like Sheffield United, again, with it being a Yorkshire derby, they'll find a way to get themselves up for that game. I do think quite a lot of teams around us have to play each other. I think Wrexham have got quite a difficult run-in. They've got to play teams around us, and also then teams battling relegation. Southampton have got to play a couple in the top 6 as well, I think. So that it's always good having teams kind of having to play each other. But yeah, I think it's an opportunity on Good Friday. And I mean, yeah, it's not ideal with some of the players getting back late. I don't know why Croatia are playing in Orlando. They're not playing the US, are they? I've just looked. They're playing Brazil and Colombia. Unless that's World Cup fixtures I'm finding, but I think that was friendly.
No, that is right. It is. No, you're right.
In Orlando.
Presumably, is it acclimatization just to get used to?
They'll be reacclimatized back to European weather by the time they go back to the US.
Could be snowing by the time they get back and land, yeah.
They're going to Disneyland, that's why.
Just to get
right, okay, that's it.
With Kyle Joseph and his kids. Kyle Joseph looking after.
I think Kyle's going to Paris. Kyle and his daughter are going to Paris, not Disney World in Florida. But apparently, Ivo Pando's a big Minnie Mouse fan, so he's going over there. I'm not allowed to go anymore.
Start playing with Mickey's gloves on. He's cheating, that mate. Your hands are massive.
There's probably a joke in there, but we'll better not say it.
No.
But yeah, I mean, going back to the serious question, yeah, I think it's good that City have an opportunity to extend that gap, but they just have to take it, because I think Oxford is a really tricky game away from home. I know they lost at the weekend to Southampton. That ended kind of their unbeaten run. But I do think at home there'll be a different prospect to what they are when they travel. But yeah, it's. I'm hoping it'll be more enjoyable than last season's trip to Oxford, which was not quite. It should have been the end of Tim Volter, but wasn't quite the end of Tim Volter.
Prutts, I know you've spoken about him on the pod many times before, even potentially in terms of a manager that City could have looked at pre-Ruben Sayers. Matt Bloomfield turning things around there. They've had a good run, got themselves from a position where they looked almost dead and buried to right back in the thick of it, haven't they? So that won't be a Good Friday away game. There is a huge opportunity for Hull City, obviously. Given the fact that Southampton aren't playing, they can put 6 points between them. Points on the board is always best. But he's turned them around, hasn't he?
Yeah, very much so. But for was it their last home game where they were leading right towards the end, and then
conceded to Charlton,
yeah. I mean, and the penalty that was given away, my word, is just inexplicable. I can't remember which defender it is, but Charlton player jumps up and drags him to the ground with his top, and just you're looking at that as a manager going, what on earth are you doing? But no, I've got a lot of time for Matt, and I think the job that he's taken over is a very, very tough one. And with the greatest respect to Oxford getting back into that level of football, it's been such a long time to come back and then consolidate. It was a great job last season to stay up. Staying up this season again will be one of real magnitude. And there's plenty of fight about what his team are about, and that's not relying on any ability on the ball or the way that they set up. They'll cause City problems, but yeah, on the one hand, you look at Southampton going, it's a relatively restful Easter period, but then that pressure, as Kathryn says, cranks up again because you get a bit of daylight between City and that chasing pack, and then the onus is once again back on them. So as we say, heavy schedule, but you get through it, come off the back of it with, I don't know, minimum 4 points, and it could be a very, very productive weekend.
Burnsy, I was going to ask that actually. What's a good points return from Oxford away and then Coventry at home on Easter Monday?
4 points out the two, but you'd get wobbly if it was only 1 point on Good Friday, I think. They're perfectly capable of getting 6 points. But I mean, the stat that I just looking at Oxford's record earlier, they've only scored 17 goals at home this season, which is only Sheffield Wednesday have scored less at home. So they're not going to take you to the cleaners. City, if they play as they should and play at 100%, should beat them. Jacob Anderson joins in on Twitter. You can always send us a message on the 1904 Club. A lot of the teams we have to play in the coming weeks will have nothing to play for. Kathryn, you've sort of answered this already. Sheffield United, Birmingham, Charlton, Norwich. I'm not sure about Norwich. What are they? 10th, 9 points off the playoffs. They might still think they might have a chance. I don't know.
I mean, and they're completely unrecognisable to what they were at the start of the season as well. That's a good team, and that manager Philippe Clement is. It feels like he's got. And I've got loads of time for Liam Manning as a manager and as a fella, but he's got a different management style. It's like Philippe's coming with just a big stick, just start swinging it around, going, "We've all been terrible. Let's get this going," and sorted it right out. Sorry, Burnsy, go on.
So no, it's all right. They're not out of it. Then I don't think they're out of it. I still think down to 10th have got a chance. Jacob says, think this might swing into our favour. Given other teams' run-ins, hoping another 9 points would be enough. We never do it the easy way, up the Tigers. Nigel says, feels like Oxford is another must-win game to help us build a points gap. Southampton, Wrexham, Derby are playing teams around us, each other. If we could get a win versus Coventry as well, then I think playoffs will be near enough ours. Can you hear the dog barking in the background, or are we all right?
I thought I could hear something. I wasn't sure if it was my dog or not. Just to quickly run through a couple of things there. City's final 7 games, 3 at home, 4 away. Obviously, as we touched on there, Oxford away on Good Friday, Coventry at home on Easter Monday. Then they go to Sheffield United on the Saturday. I did think that game might be moved, actually, but it is a 3 o'clock Saturday. Then at home to Birmingham, and there's all kinds of talk that Chris Davis finally might lose his job there. So we'll see. Then away at Leicester on the Wednesday night, before going to Charlton for the final away game at the end of April over London Marathon weekend and FA Cup semi-final weekend. And then, of course, finishing at home to Norwich. Norwich and Coventry are the only two teams in the top 10 that City face in those final games. And Kathryn, over the last 10 years, the average points total to get in the playoffs has been 74. City are on 66.
Yeah, I hate when it's like how many wins do you think you need, because it's always so hard to predict. Yeah, and then people talk about Sheffield United, but they've been disappointing. And I think from a friend that watches Sheffield United a lot, apparently they're a first half team. They start games quite well and then they fall away, which is I think what happened against Wrexham. They took the lead and then ended up losing 2-1. But there's absolutely no way on earth that Chris Wilder's not getting his players up for a Yorkshire derby against Hull with loads of ex-Sheffield United players in the team. Again, it's the same situation as Sheffield Wednesday. I know there's not like a real fierce rivalry with Sheffield United in the same sense. Maybe there was in the 80s, as my dad used to say, they used to always have, not him, but like the fans used to always fight with each other in the 80s apparently. But in modern times, there's not really been a proper rivalry of Sheffield United, but they would still absolutely love to take points off us and sort of spoil our chances of getting into the playoffs. And Chris Wilder would as well. He always seems to make digs about Hull as well. As much as I like him as a person, he always seems to throw a little dig in at Hull. So he'd love to take points off us. Birmingham, you look at as being the home game as you think you should win, because Birmingham's away record is terrible. I quite enjoyed, I think Chris Davis said at the weekend when they lost to Derby, he said if it had been at St Andrews, it would have been a different story. And it's like, well, yeah, but you have to play half your games away from home. Well, yeah. He's
a straight. Given what I saw from him in the St Andrews game, the way he spoke to Jurkovic, I can't say I've got a lot of time for him. And I if he lost his job, I wouldn't be too disappointed, but hopefully he keeps it for that game, because I think that if he's manager, City will wipe the floor with him.
Well, I hope he doesn't listen to this podcast, because that'd be in his team talk, wouldn't it? Although maybe if players want to give him, they would be like, honestly, yeah, we'll go out and lose.
If he's that bothered about what I've got to say, he's got a problem.
Even Charlton, like I always think it's so easy to say and I've been like done it in the past when you think, oh, teams have got nothing to play for, but sometimes sometimes they're on the beach and sometimes they're like relaxed and they go out there and play a bit of football. And again, you think of Nathan Jones as a manager. I can't imagine he's going to take his foot off the gas. He's just not the type with his Charlton team. He's going to say, you go out there, their last home game of the season, that game, he's going to say, go out there and get a win and, blah, 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 whatever else he says in his Welsh accent. He's not going to sit there and say, oh, just take it easy.
Do the accent, Kathryn. Do it.
It's about leeks and cheese.
So I think
her accent's like a running, not very reliable.
Oh, come on. I was hoping for like Nessa from Gavin and Stacey.
I could do the Nessa from Gavin and Stacey, but I don't think I could do Nathan Jones. Oh, that's as best I could get for Nessa.
Oh my god!
Is that the noise? That's the noise when you hit the bin with the bricks in.
Yeah.
Did you do that? Oh.
Yeah. I don't think I'm hearing the phones from the talent spotters at Britain's Got Talent. I don't think they're ringing.
No.
Prutts, they as I said there, average is 74. Last season it was the lowest total in the last 10 years. Bristol City finished 6th with 68. Fulham back in 16-17 was the highest with 80. City are on course to get 75. What's your view on the kind of play, because on the playoff race? But let's not forget we're talking about 7th, but they're only 5 points off. Okay, Ipswich have got a game in hand at Portsmouth, who are just in free fall and could end up going down, but they're only 5 points off 2nd.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. It's a good point to make, because it's not an insurmountable turnaround to get into that 2nd spot. Given as well, Borough looking a little bit wobbly. We talk about keeping the teams behind them at arm's length and saying that if you look at the likes of a Southampton or a Wrexham or even a Derby that have got games to be able to make up that difference, then why not City looking at that 2nd spot? Because, I mean, it'd make for a hell of a finish to the season, wouldn't it? And I think given the expectations of Borough, Ipswich, and Hulls to a lesser extent, and as ever with the greatest respect of that, then they're expected to at least finish in the top two out there. I mean, Coventry's seemingly home and hosed, but I think you're right. And given the games that are coming up, as Kathryn mentioned, it's not insurmountable at all. I think maybe even in the sense of what motivates them between now and the end of the season. If Hull City are focused on keeping everyone behind you at arm's length, that might inadvertently turn into an assault on the top two or that second automatic place, might it?
Well, given Middlesbrough play Millwall on Good Friday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's a massive opportunity there.
Huge. Absolutely huge. And I think it's not something that would have been missed, I don't think, at all by anyone involved in Hull City from the kind of tactical and training point of view, because they know how quickly that can change. You have a dodgy. I mean, you look at those games, and one of those teams has a crap Easter, and City do their job. I mean, it could be a completely different set of permutations come that Tuesday or that. Maybe take out that because of the Southampton game, but that Wednesday morning, going into that second weekend of April, it could be. I mean, you might see Hull City breathing down the necks of whoever's in second.
Do you think they'll get in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kathryn?
I think it's barring a collapse. I think I've seen enough to say that we should do, but yeah, I think it'll go down. I think they'll go down to the wire potentially. I wouldn't like to need something from that last game against Norwich. I'd like us to maybe be already in by then, but Hull City never like to make it easy for us.
Burnsy?
Yeah, they should do. They're in the better position. The recent form's been a bit wobbly, and it was a bit wobbly against Sheffield Wednesday, but as Prutts said, they should have won it comfortably in the end. I think that'll steady a few nerves. Hopefully the injuries don't bite too badly, and they can get over the line. And I take your point about the top two. It's not beyond the realms of possibility, is it? And it's a big incentive for the manager to say, we've still got a chance of the top two here, fellas. Go out and do it. If you have a good Easter's obviously usually fairly pivotal, isn't it? You have a good Easter, you get 6 points out of Easter, then you're absolutely roaring. You probably, to make the playoffs, might need one more win after that. But, it's tight. It's thrilling. It's great. It's really good. Can I just mention, Kathryn mentioned David earlier, and we were talking about Sheffield United. And I just wanted to talk about the ticket prices. And David's been in touch with us. Ticket prices, clubs can negotiate, because everybody's up in arms about the Sheffield United prices. Clubs can negotiate reciprocal pricing, and City have in the past. I've not seen any Championship club championing a price cap, and clubs like Norwich and Sheffield United are fleecing the most loyal fans who travel away. A concerted campaign is needed via the FSA. I was wondering whether the new regulator has any input into ticket prices or not. Does anybody know?
The regulator don't have the power to force clubs to charge a certain price. They can encourage clubs to communicate with supporters groups, etc. But they don't have the power to say, right, Championship clubs, Sheffield United, you can't charge an adult £38 to watch a game of Championship football, or QPR, Norwich, similar. Bristol City is another one that charges ridiculous prices. But they can lobby. We've seen, again, in the Premier League just this last week, yet again, they've confirmed a price cap of £30 for an away ticket. And we saw, not wishing to drag Forest into this podcast, but they were charging £70 for the second leg against Midtjylland in the Europa League. The fans said, no, we're not paying that. We've played Midtjylland already. We've got crazy, it's £70 to go and watch Premier League football. We've got a lot of games. We're not paying it. Fans voted with their feet. They'd only sold about 10,000, I think. Forest then reduced their prices a few days before the actual game against Midtjylland. They knocked a tenner off the tickets. The fans said, no, it's still 50 to £60. We're not doing that. They reduced them all to 25 quid, filled the stadium. They've then learned for the second leg of the quarterfinal against Porto, actually, if we charge what Villa are charging for their quarter-final, £70 a ticket and upwards. The Villa fans are in absolute uproar again. Villa haven't sold out in the Europa League this season because of the ticket prices. Villa have gone again, £70 upwards, and the fans are up in arms. Forest have seen that. Right, we're going to knock tickets down to £25 to £40 for season ticket holders and members. Forest have learned their lesson, and now they'll fill the ground for the quarter-final against Porto, who they've already played this season. It needs fans to vote with their feet, but the difficulty you've got is 3,000 fans want to go and support Hull City at Bramall Lane in a massive, massive game in the race for the playoffs, as they did 12 months ago when they were struggling against relegation and went and won 3-0. It's really hard because fans want to go and support the team, but there are a lot of Hull City fans at 38 quid for an adult and 24 quid for a young adult or 17 quid for a 5-year-old that can't afford to go and will feel disappointed that they're being priced out of going to support their team because of what the opposition club are doing. Now, City are brilliant. £4 for a kid, up to £9 for a 12-year-old or whatever it is. Their ticket prices at City are very reasonable. They don't rip away fans off. £24 or £29 for an adult, depending on whether you sit in the East Stand or the North Stand. But more importantly, kids' prices, who are the future, their price, the Hull City charge away fans exactly the same as they charge youngsters at Hull City fans. And that's the way forward. But Sheffield United are just, and I feel for United fans that have to pay the same prices. We've written about it. We wrote about it yesterday. I think the media nationally need to come together and similar with shirt prices. Look at the English shirt. Just come out 90 quid or 130 quid. No wonder people are going and buying them from dodgy places online because they can get them for 15 quid. Fans are being ripped off, and clubs, the FSA and the EFL, the FA need to take a stand and force clubs to do something. Credit to Stoke. Stoke are one of the few clubs that for the last 15 years or whatever it is have paid, given away travel free. Stoke 25 quid for adult away tickets time and time again. They don't change it if it's a bigger game per se. They keep it the same. So credit to Stoke because they're one of the few clubs that do it. City are another one.
Should the regulator do it, Prutts, Kathryn?
Go on, Kathryn.
I don't know. I think it's got to be up to the authorities. From what Baz was saying, I don't know how much difference a regulator would make, but I mean, if you want to look at a club of fans that have been ripped off away from home this season, look no further than Prutts' mates Wrexham. They've been absolutely ripped off in every single away game. I've got a friend that goes. I think City's the only place they've been charged less than £28 for an away game. They were charged 38 by Sheffield United as well. Leicester, I think I saw a Sheffield Wednesday fan say they got charged 44 by Sheffield United and they got charged 25 by Leicester. Leicester added a tenner on for Wrexham. I don't know why. Don't know why you would add it. Either it's just the Hollywood tax that they're having to pay. But I think and they were saying to me like City's the cheapest away ticket they've had all season, and Wrexham away was actually pretty reasonably priced as well. I mean, I went to QPR this season. It was 39 for an adult. It shouldn't be up to the
facilities are terrible, aren't they? Yeah. As well, you referenced the facilities at Loftus Road. Great stadium, like as in it. It's traditional. I love going, but the facilities there for fans are horrific.
So, yeah, it's awful. I mean, but it shouldn't be up to the fans to have to choose to not go to the games as much as like I think it's different when it's a home game because I think it's easier to force the clubs to change their mind. But like Hull City fans not going to Sheffield United isn't probably going to change Sheffield United's mind to drop the tickets. So it shouldn't be up to the fans to have to say we're going to miss out on a game to make the tickets cheaper. It's got to be up to the powers above to do something to change it. And if it's £30 in the Premier League, there's no way on earth that it should be more than £30 in a division below the Premier League.
Prutts, I'm really hot on this. It frustrates me that families are being priced out of watching Championship football. But is it fair to compare it to the Premier League, who have got mega wealth because of the TV deal, so can afford to? I saw a couple of years ago somebody. I think it might have been Rummenigge from Bayern Munich, and said we can make an extra 2 million on ticket prices, but that 2 million for Bayern Munich is changed down the back of the sofa. Yeah. That 2 million spread across fans makes a massive difference. And is it easier in the Premier League to subsidise tickets because ticket revenue for clubs in the Premier League is relatively it's not where their big income comes from. It's TV, it's commercial, it's sponsorship. Whereas when you go down the pyramid in the Championship and below, I've seen some League 1 and 2 games are 30 quid at times, and it's crazy. But is that because clubs lower down the pyramid don't have mega TV deals? Their commercial deals are nothing like it. So the ticket revenue, gate revenue, is what keeps them going week to week. Is that why we're seeing such crazy prices in the Championship and even in League 1 and 2 as well?
Without knowing the intricacies of the finances or the clubs involved, I would say that the broadcast revenue, as we all know in the Premier League, it dwarfs everything else, and the operating costs as you get further down, ground maintenance, paying of players. I mean, when you talk about how clubs are run and how they try and recuperate cash, then it does get very, very dicey indeed, because you look at, say, owners taking over and what money they put in. Look at the Sheffield Wednesday situation, look at the Leicester City situation, look at clubs that have tumbled through the divisions and gone out of business, clubs that are stuck in Leagues 1 and 2 that have been higher up that haven't got the ability to fight the way out. Then they'll be looking from an operating business point of view to recoup money how they see fit. Now, there is an element of this which is preying on the loyalty of fans. And I think you're absolutely right, Baz, because it's for the good of the game going forward. The spectacle that is sold around the world is full stadiums and loud fans. If those stadiums aren't as full anymore, it makes it a completely different spectacle, doesn't it? So there's got to be half an eye on that. As I said, though, I mean, running football clubs, when you look at profit and sustainability and clubs getting promoted and kind of being sanctioned retrospectively, it's got to be one of the only real big businesses, sorry to use the word business with it, that accounts for lots of loss per team, doesn't it? Which, if you're thinking about corporations and entities making money, it's not a given thing, I don't think, in football, unless you're at the very, very top end and you've got ownership that can plough money in, hopefully, as a way of getting money back. So I think the amounts that you're talking, I think, is some of it sounds astronomical. I mean, and it's not a straight line by any stretch of imagination. And again, maybe comparing the two is apples and oranges territory. But concert tickets and people just going, well, you talk about the Wrexham tax, Kathryn, which is bizarre considering, with the greatest respect to what Wrexham are as a team and a club, you're putting prices up, but that doesn't mean to say that Ryan Reynolds is coming to the game, does it? You're putting prices up for players that are EFL players, with the greatest respect, have had great careers, very workable careers, and big professional footballers got promotions. But it's not the Harlem Globetrotters coming to town, is it? It's not Pep bringing Man City stacked to the rafters with 11 internationals. So that I can't understand that, but it is that business sense of, again, going back to concert tickets and dynamic pricing. This is a bit of a sidebar, but there will always be, within the realms of what is allowed, organisations going, well, there'll be lots of demand for that, so let's put the ticket prices up, which to everyone we seemingly go, well, that's taking the whatever a little bit, but that's why that happens. And again, I'm not really giving you much of an answer here, but if you talk about the match day fan experience, which I know something, and I'm not just saying this because I work for the EFL quite a bit, and I know what work goes into it, but it's something they're obviously very, very wary of, because value for money doesn't necessarily go hand in hand with footballers, because you can spend 40 quid and still come out having had a crap 2 hours. You spend money on a gig, a concert, going to the cinema. By and large, unless someone's had a stinker at a concert, you're going to be entertained, aren't you? You're not. You know what you're going to get.
You know what you're going to get.
Yeah. Whereas you could spend 40 quid at Loftus Road, Kathryn, and think, well, I've been to the toilets, they're disgusting. I've been to get something to eat, it's not been great. And this is not just saying about QPR, but about different ground. I've been for that. So I've paid for the privilege of this. And then it falls into the realm of what historically American sports and fans dynamic has got so well, because again, maybe a bit of a stereotype, they're more broadly accepting of it being a customer services industry, aren't they? Whereas in England, you're a fan, and a fan goes anywhere. A fan goes to the places where you get things thrown at you and you're covered in whatever and all that. Whereas you're actually going, for 40 quid, I quite like somewhere that's all right to sit in for the next couple of hours. But that's because historically we need to catch up, I think, with that. But there was that initiative which was 20s plenty, wasn't it? However many seasons ago that was. Which
they're still going. It's still going.
Yeah. So for on the road, I think. But again, I'm saying this from a purely, it's a good, without sounding too cynically PR based. Talking about this and saying prices should be lower on the road is an absolute win-win when we're talking on a forum such as this and fans are listening. But I do, having known business football owners and people that work in the different hierarchies, as we've all spoken to, it's an absolute tapping from a PR point of view to be able to do that. In reality, I've got no idea, because football finances, it's such a murky world, and it's such a cul-de-sac and a series of kind of mazes that teams get stuck into, that I don't quite know how that gets completely untangled from the running of a football club, to be honest.
Well, look at City. I know we're drifting well over time. But
yeah, sorry, we're talking about finances, which we can't actually change, unfortunately.
Yeah. City put their prices up for the Chelsea game, but I think most people accepted that it was a big opportunity, and that City's prices probably are on the cheaper end of the scale anyway.
And that would have always been the case, though, wouldn't it? A big team comes into town, demand goes up, prices go up. That's never changed. I think the thing that knackers it right now, without us getting super political, is because everything else costs a shed load more money.
Yeah.
And what we always said, going through COVID, coming out the back of COVID, is you need the fans back. We want the fans back. And I think there is a certain strand of fan, which I totally get, of, hang on, 5 years ago, you were saying that, we need you. And now it's just, let me just whip your pants down here, because you've come back, and we know you're going to come back regardless of global pandemic. You'll always be in the stadiums. So, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's the fandom side of it is what makes football what it is. Yet clubs are ever more precariously teetering on the edge, that they've got to generate cash flow without taking the mickey. And again, like I said, I'm not privy to those conversations. I don't know what it takes to run a football club at all. But yeah, the original question, which seems about 20 minutes ago now, and apologies for this last end of the podcast ramble, that there's more money to play with in the Premier League because it's the Premier League, because it generates billions and billions of pounds.
Burnsy, you started the topic, so you can finish it.
Yeah, sorry about that. No, I was. Well, all I was going to say is, in answer to Prutts' question, what does it take? Well, in the Championship, I suspect it probably takes a minimum of 15 million quid of the owners' own money to keep a Championship club going, because there may be one or two who are not running at a loss and needing big owner contributions. It needs a big conversation. But I'm just personally disappointed that the new regulator, doesn't have that sort of control, that they can sort of insist on a sensible pricing structure across the game.
Yeah.
And certainly,
I'm trying to think of what's a good analogy, Burnsy, in the sense of what the regulator is going to be, what the EFL is, which is the EFL's there to help govern the clubs with the active participation of the clubs. That's why the clubs are members of the EFL. They're not there to be some kind of schoolmaster to point the finger and rap knuckles. Someone's got to be in charge of lots of institutions, which are what football clubs are. But they're all actively involved in it because they choose to be. Now, obviously, it's a different thing if you choose not to be involved in the EFL. Good luck having games and etc. But it then falls into the bracket of what these clubs are then. What that, not necessarily what they own. I'm trying to word this. From a purely business point of view, how can a bigger body say what you're selling or what your goods are, i.e. football matches and the football matches who they're against, to say, well, you can't do that. Is that anywhere near kind of freedom, like coming up against freedom of trade type stuff? I mean, I might be going down a little wormhole here that doesn't make any sense, but surely a pushback from the clubs would be, well, sorry, we're going to price games as we see fit. And like you say, unless the regulator gets a real strong-armed strand to it, where they say, well, no, we've all got to agree on what this is, and this is what it is. That's maybe a different thing, and I don't know the intricacies of it too much. But football, maybe is it akin to saying you can't sell that player for that much money because we think that's not right? Am I anywhere near drawing the same line with stuff like that? Because it's their asset, their commodity. If someone wants to give them 15 million quid or someone wants to give them 25 million quid, then it's up to them who they sell it to, isn't it?
Kathryn, anything to add before we go?
Make sense of it, please.
I just think it's always the fans that suffer, isn't it? It's always the fans that suffer with these things, and like I think this is a part of the problem is, and it's not every football club, but I think some football clubs do treat fans as customers, and maybe that's just us viewing it in the fact that they're business people and that's always how they're going to treat it. And if they're not football people, they won't see fans as fans. I think that's part of the problem. But I think they just need a cap of this is the maximum amount any club can charge, and you can't go over it, because Sheffield United charging Sheffield Wednesday £44 just because it's Sheffield Wednesday, and £38 for some teams. It's just like picking and choosing. I don't think that's fair. And yeah, it's not that far from Sheffield to Hull, but for those of us that don't live in Hull, it's an extra cost of a train ticket. Or even if you're a Hull fan that's moved outside of Hull and you're further away from Sheffield but you want to go, that's even more cost. So there just needs to be a cap in general. But it's like I say, it always comes down to the fans, and it shouldn't be up to the fans to have to vote with their feet to make change, because it shouldn't be up to them.
You shouldn't, for a mum or a dad to take their kid to watch that game, you shouldn't be paying £38 for an adult and £17 for your 6-year-old. I just don't think that's okay.
He's probably got a better deal at Disneyland. He's probably less to go to Disneyland.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Right, extended edition for the international break. But hopefully that was interesting for you to talk about ticket prices, and there's plenty more to come on that as time goes on. Prutts, lovely to see you as always. Thank you very much for popping by.
Good official ending. Thank you very much. It's been fun. Nice to catch up, given obviously what City have been up to in recent weeks. I know it's very much it's that sense of it being opposite to what we were talking about at the tail end of last season. It's very much in their hands in the most positive of ways, isn't it? Which is great. Yeah,
what lovely position to be in. Kathryn, lovely to see you. Just be careful when you're out trotting around.
Well, I'll be at Oxford and I'll be at Coventry. And if you could tell Matt Crooks to stop getting booked because he's 3 games away from a 3-game ban with 15. I take back, if he gets 15, I take back my defence of him the other week when Burnsy was saying it shouldn't be wiped. At that point, give him I can't defend him anymore if he gets up to 15 yellow cards. So I assume they don't reset for the playoffs either. So Matt,
I was going to say, can you imagine the 15th booking last game of the season, clinching the playoff spot, and then
you just wouldn't play him, would you?
No.
So, yeah. Matt Crooks keeps picking up his customary yellow cards.
Matt Crooks gets booked.
Yeah, he's on 12 bookings. If he gets 3 more, he's out. He gets a 3-game ban. So, Burnsy, thank you very much.
Okay, apologies to everybody if I didn't read out your message. Loads of messages coming into the 1904 Club. We'll try to get to more on the next episode.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your comments, as always. Have a good week, and we'll be back again soon. Up the Tigers.